All right, guys, the Flexible here with Adam Bighill, the champ. We're gonna take you through your stretch routine for your football program, okay? Some prerequisites for this are, you might want some objects, if you can get them. A yoga block would be good. You know, maybe some padding. If you're at home on a hard floor, like a yoga mat, or again, if you have access to something like one of these, like a gymnastics floor mat, anything like that, just because trying to do it on a floor without any padding is gonna be a little uncomfortable. Shoes off, you don't need shoes for this. Other than that, you might also want access to a bench, or almost everybody that I know has a wall they have access to, which will work as well. So we're gonna get started. We're gonna start all the stretches from the foot. So the first stretch is gonna be your plantar fascia stretch. So what Adam's gonna do is he's gonna focus on actually curling his toes underneath and then sitting back on his heels, okay? So the goal over time is that all 5 toes are bent and stretching, that the entire ball of the foot, the bones are actually in contact with the floor, okay? If you're really tight, you're gonna notice a lot of guys, they're gonna be tight right under their big toe, so their foot might be rolled off a little bit and they can't get the foot down, but over time, you wanna be able to sit that down, okay? If it's too intense, you can lean forward. All right, again, that's where like a block or something like that will come in handy, so you can lean forward. And then over time, you want to be able to sit back and really put all your weight on the toes, and that's what's really going to help you get this stretch. You're going to feel it through the arch, bottom of the foot. It might even run up the heel. It's kind of down to the bottom part of the Achilles and the calf here. All right, and we're going to hold this for 2 minutes. Just be sure to breathe and relax. All right. Then from here, you're gonna need a block or a pad, rolled up towel, yoga mat. Adam's going to actually now straighten his feet, and he might wanna bring them a little closer together. All right, so knees together will probably be the easiest on this. And then from here, what we wanna do is focus on stretching out the front of the shin. This is the tibialis stretch, okay? So as you can see here, Adam's feet are somewhat turned out. That's okay to start, especially if he feels it, but eventually we actually wanna try to get the feet turned in so that the heel and the foot's in a straight line. If you're really having trouble doing that and you have a little bit of extra time, you can actually go 1 foot at a time on this. So if Adam actually wants to just bring like one leg into a lunge or a kneel, or he can, yeah, you can have it like that too. And now he can really sit back and focus on just kind of rolling and getting that 1 foot. Yeah, there we go, good. Now, keep in mind, this will be a little bit more intense because your body weight is now being distributed on just 1 ankle instead of 2. So you might have to lean forward a little more, but that it is an option for guys who find that their ankles are just completely rolling out to the side. So this also will be 2 minutes. Again, forward if it's really intense. As you get better at it, you can sit all the way up over the heels. And that's gonna bring us to our 3rd stretch. It's a standing calf stretch. So Adam's gonna stand.
And both of those are done in both sessions. And now we're continuing here. So you do those before each session, but now we're continuing specifically with Wednesday's session.
So now this will, yeah, exactly. So now we'll start here. So this is the standing calf stretch. If you have a slant board, great. If not, again, a yoga block or even like a small stairwell in a home will work. It's hard, at first you might be able to use a wall, but as you find as you get flexible, the wall will actually limit. Okay, but the goal is to keep the ball of the foot up on the block, or at least the toes. And we really want to keep the knee locked out and try to get the hip over the ankle. Okay, that's going to give the best stretch to the upper part of the calf. If you also want to, you can hinge at the hip slightly and bend forward and really bring that over. Now, some of you guys, if you're tight to your hamstrings, you might start to feel that through your hamstring as well, which is okay, but just focus on really making sure that we're getting the stretch through the upper part of the calf, all right? So this one is gonna be 120-second, 2 minutes per side. So again, just breathe. You can also focus on really like pulling your toes towards your shin. So using your tibialis muscle to help stretch out the calf there. Okay, and it's very important before we get into hamstring stretching that we stretch the calves, because a lot of guys, when they go to stretch the hamstrings, their calves are so tight that they actually don't even feel their hamstrings. I've gotten that a lot. So It's very, very important to do any calf stretching you need to do before you do your hamstring stretching. And if you really want, you can actually do your calves every day as well, until basically you can't feel the stretch anymore. Would be a good indication that it's not necessary at that point. But then from here, we'll take away the block, and this is going to be your standing pike stretch. So this is just your standard hamstring stretch. You can stand with your feet about hip width apart, okay? And then from here, doing your best to keep the knees locked out, and you're simply reaching for the floor, okay? Now, if Adam, I know, can touch the floor. If you can't touch the floor, again, you can use like a block or 2 blocks or something to kind of rest your hands on. And then it also will give you kind of like a cue of working your way down to the floor. You can keep adjusting the block to where you need it. Really squeezing those quads, squeezing those VMOs, keeping those those knees locked out. The other thing is, if you only feel it in your low back and you don't feel it in your hamstring, think about really like almost extending, lifting your chest up, which is going to pull your hip. It's going to elongate and pull your hip up, bringing your abs and your thighs together. That's what's going to really get the hamstrings. If you're really, really rounded over through here, you might just feel it through your low back, and you're not going to feel it through your hamstrings. So that's one cue for the hamstring stretch. 2 minutes, you might get a lot of blood flow to your head when you first start doing this if you don't spend a lot of time upside down. Don't worry, it's okay. Your body will get used to it. Your circulation will improve and it'll get better pretty quickly. Just make sure that you're breathing through your nose and you're not holding your breath, okay? That's gonna be your standing pike stretch. That'll be done also 2 minutes, if I didn't mention that already. So, the next exercise is elephant walks. Also can be done standing. This is one of my favorites for the hamstring. It's a little bit more dynamic. So Adam will come into his pike fold again, but this time he's going to bend his knees first. So he's going to bend his knees and bring his stomach and his lower ribs in contact with his thighs, okay? So from here, what he's going to do is straighten out one leg at a time. He's just going to hold, so he'll start here, he'll show, now this leg is straight and the other one is bent, so now he'll bend it back, and then he'll switch legs, and you're just going to alternate for 90 seconds doing the 2. So make sure that before you do this, you can actually come back to the bent position. Make sure that position's really reset and then switch. So you're not just alternating. You want to bring both back to bent and then straighten out. Both back to bent and then straighten out. So that'll allow you to really get deep into the hamstring, but not having to spend a lot of time there where it's going to be really, really intense. So this kind of will bypass your nervous system a little bit and allow you to get deeper than you normally would, simply because the stretch reflex will not kick in because you're not super deep for such a long time. So the goal is eventually to be able to keep glued to your thighs while you're able to straighten out the legs. That would be the ultimate goal here. The single leg allows the pelvis to rotate based on your flexibility. If you try to do this with just both legs at one time, you're going to find that your low back might limit you, or one of your legs might limit you. You're going to notice one leg is usually going to be tighter than the other. So this just allows you to really focus on each individual leg, one at a time, and it's really going to open you up deep before we get into the next stretch. So he would do those for 90 seconds. Good job. You might want to relax for a second. Good. Now the next is a single leg pike stretch. Okay, so this is a combination because the front foot is going to be elevated on the block. So it's going to be a combination of both the calf and the hamstring in one, which is why we did all the calf work and a lot of the hamstring work. So if you want here, the back leg can be bent, the front leg is straight, and this is just your normal pike, so he's going to fold forward. All right, and you're going to find that with the foot elevated in a pike, it's actually going to be a little more intense, and it might feel a little bit more nervy, and that's because with the ankle dorsiflexed, your nerves are actually shortened, so they're at their shortest point with the foot dorsiflexed. So it will be more intense than if you're just flat foot on the ground. So as you can see here, we've opened up a lot with the calves, and we've done quite a few hamstring stretching. He's going to be able to get the best out of this stretch. Now eventually, just like the calf stretch, you're going to want the hip to come over the ankle. So as you get more flexible and as you warm up through the stretch, the goal here is going to actually be able to get the hip forward, and you can adjust the back foot, whatever is needed and whatever is comfortable for him. So that would be the ultimate goal, is that your hip and your ankle are perfectly stacked over one another with the front foot elevated. So that would be a good target for that. It's really good. Nice. Good. So that covers basically all the calf, all the hamstring for this routine, and now we're going to move into the quad and the hip flexor. All right, so this is where a wall or a bench are going to come in handy. A chair, a sofa, anything that you really have available. So we have the bench set up here, so Adam's going to come here to the bench, and he's going to set up for the couch stretch. Now, if you found that your second exercise, your tibialis, was really, really tight, using a wall might be a little uncomfortable and you might only feel it in the ankle. If so, I advise that you try to find a bench or a couch or chair first, and then as your ankle mobility improves, then you can move to a wall. If you don't have that option, just bringing the shin off the wall some when you start this stretch is going to help a lot in terms of the ankle. But in this stretch, what we want to focus on is actually extending the hip fully, so squeezing the glute, and then from here, taking this whole line from the shoulder to the knee, and then shifting it back. So he can actually push from this like hamstring. Yeah, good. So he's leaning back because the shin is not completely vertical. But if your shin is completely vertical, you're just going to be straight up and down, obviously. So if he were to stack his knee as close as he can to the bench, obviously he's not going to have to lean back as much to get the stretch. This will also, as you can tell, Adam has some massive legs and calves here. The hypertrophy of your lower body will actually limit the flexibility here in terms of like going back, whether you're on the wall or on the bench. So the bigger your legs, the little easier time you're gonna have at this.
But it's worth mentioning that Adam can still do our standard of
absolutely.
Against the wall, he can still go.
You just may not
shin
get
and shoulder for sure.
Like ankle to butt here, which is okay. But if he was against the wall, I mean,
look at that.
He can. So that's pretty good. One thing is I have gotten before is people feel it in their back when they do this, and that's simply because they're not squeezing their glute. So if he were to relax his glute and then arch his back, that's not what we want. We want to make sure that the hip is extended, and then we're trying to get the back as well. So just focus on that cue. You have to squeeze the glute to stretch out the quad fully. All right? So from here, now we're going to go into the hip flexor. So you have a couple options with this next one.
Sure.
You could actually stay on a bench or wall if you wanted to. Now just keep in mind it's going to be harder simply because it's going to keep you honest. So for this we'll show a few variations. So if Adam wanted to, he could actually keep his foot. He could probably switch legs, or he could use the same one if he wants. See here? Yeah, good. So now where our cat stretch, we're trying to go back. To get the hip flexor, we actually want to come forward. So the knee's probably going to want to be more than 90 degrees. So if he wants to open up the front of his knee, then from here, he wants to squeeze the glute, and now you're trying to get the hip down to the floor, okay? So this is now gonna stretch out the psoas and the hip flexor instead of focusing particularly on the quad. It's very important you maintain chest up. Now, Adam's been working on these for a while, so he's gonna be flexible, more flexible than most. If you find that your torso is tilted slightly like this at first and you still get a stretch, it's okay. Just know that over time, you wanna try to get the chest up as vertical as possible when you're getting this, okay? I mean, he's gonna get really deep here. That's pretty good. As you get more flexible, the front angle of the leg is gonna have to open up more, and you'll just know that as you get more flexible through the back hip, you can bring this leg out more, and that's gonna look more like your front split, okay? So that's a pretty good showing. Now, if you don't wanna do it against the wall, we'll give Adam a break here. He can actually come off the bench, and then, yeah, that's good. And then now, we're gonna show relaxed lunge pulses. So I want Adam to actually set up just like he was, but he's gonna bring his hands down on the inside of his thigh. Okay, so let's actually bring them all the way, both on the inside of your leg. Yeah, like that, good. So that'll allow you to get your torso down, okay? This is super important because the only way you're gonna feel this stretch is if you engage the glute. All right, so what he's actually gonna do for this is I'm gonna have him come up onto his toes, just like our split squat, what he's gonna try to do is engage the glute and straighten out the leg that's keeping his position here. So that would be 1 pulse, and he's gonna relax. And now he would do 60 of these, okay? So you're gonna focus on squeezing that glute, trying to straighten that back knee out and get it off the floor, okay? And just real, good, maybe 1 every second, 1 every 2 seconds. You really wanna work on engaging that glute and squeezing that quad to straighten out the leg, okay? And that's really gonna open up your hip flexor a lot. And you're gonna find that the more you can straighten this out, the more it's gonna emulate your ability to straighten out the back of the leg in your front split. So if you find it impossible at first, it's okay. If Adam didn't have the flexibility to do this, he could prop his hands up on blocks or something, and he could have the same exact effect. And then over time, the goal is just to get that hip down as much as possible. But this is really good. So he would do 60 reps. And that's really gonna open him up, really get his glute engaged so you know what it feels like to use the glute to extend the hip and stretch the psoas. Now, if he wanted to relax there for a second, now he could transition into what is his upright lunge. So he could have the chest up and he could bring his blocks. I would advise using a block or chair, doing it next to a sofa, a couch, or anything. And now he wants to stay up, but now, just like we were doing on the bench, get the hip down. So now you see his chest angle is completely vertical instead of more relaxed. And this you would just hold for time. Just keep in mind, he doesn't have to for this one, he doesn't have to stay up on the toes. If he wanted to just flatten out the foot, he could do that. Just focus on using the glute to extend the hip down towards the floor. That's the most important part, is that right there. And you're not arching excessively from the low back. Keep the chest vertical, but you really want to think about extending the hip and squeezing your butt to push the hip down towards the floor. And this he would do for 90 seconds. And then at the very end, if he wanted to, he could stand up. One of the best things, I didn't write it up here because it's not really a stretch, but he could just come back to his kind of pike position and round out his back a little bit, just to relax the low back. You don't have to spend a lot of time, 10, 15 seconds. Just if you spend a lot of time extending, it might just be good so your back doesn't spasm or contract or something like that. So that would be the end of this routine. It probably will take you about 35, 40 minutes, I would say, at best, if you just move through it and don't waste a lot of time. So that was really impressive.